Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Reds Rundown podcast hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob. He's Joe, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, how are you doing?
Doing okay. Wish the Reds were winning some baseball games. We thought about wearing black today for the Reds funeral for the 2024 season, but we decided it might be a little premature, but it does feel like things could not be worse at this point.
No, we are definitely in a pit of despair as the Reds go 1-5 on the week. They have lost, I believe, 8 of 10. So it has been a bit of a struggle, to say the least. And that'll kind of lay us or put us into our question of the day. Let us know in the comment section below your thoughts on this. Do you lay the blame at the players' feet or the hitting coaches for this team's overall hitting? They are currently last in Major League Baseball with a .210 batting average, which is pretty poor, to say the least. And it feels like basically only one person has hit the entire week. So, or the last week, essentially. So we'll do what we normally do. We are going to go through the games this week. It started off on a positive note, Joe. Reds win and won 5-2. Nick Lodolo was masterful yet again. I don't remember if this was the game where Stu Fairchild made that insane play or if it was that Tuesday game. Actually, I think it was the Wednesday game. So we'll get to that in a second. But it was a great outing from Lodolo. The Reds they win 5-2, you think. I mean, Joe and I were even texting. I was like, all right, there's our one win. Maybe we can even find a way to a second win. Our hopes were dashed as Nick Martinez kind of does what Nick Martinez does in starts, where the Reds lose 6-4. Yu Darvish came back, looked pretty solid. The Reds were still hitting, though, at this point. So that was good to note. Then on the Wednesday game, the Reds lose 6-2. Fernando Cruz giving up a grand slam in this game. Pretty unfortunate game for him, as he had been very good for most of the season leading up to this point. And, the Reds just looked pretty rough in this one, Joe, to be honest with you as well. They had been losing closer games, it felt like, and I was feeling a little bit more confident in them based on this Rangers series and everything else leading into this. 22 hits, only 3 walks, which is pretty poor, and 27 strikeouts against a Padres staff that's not necessarily known for being really good. So, I don't know. My general impressions were that we were kind of being carried and things did not look great. Now, to be fair, we were missing Tyler Stevenson, CES, and Jake Fraley for most, if not all, of this series with different hand injuries and illnesses. So I had hoped, and we'll get to the Orioles series here in a minute, but I'd hoped that things would get better with them coming back. But Joe, what were your thoughts on this Padres series in its totality?
Well, we knew the Padres were a better team than the record said they were going into it. That was going to be a tough series. I know I mistakenly put on social media you picked 1-2, and I picked 1-2 too, but I know you were a little bit more optimistic than I was, and maybe we could have gotten them at a good time, seeing that they weren't playing the best baseball. For me, it's one of those things that I'll reiterate again. I just don't think we can beat good teams other than the Phillies, apparently, who they're on a tear right now too. So maybe that's
Best
a good sign.
This
could be
right
a good
now.
sign. Could be a sign, but no, it's super frustrating with how get the one win with Odolo, and like you said, mentally you're sitting there thinking, okay, maybe we can sneak out one more win to get one more win on the road here, and then not be able to do it, and then have possibly going back to the West Coast here this week. So that means it's going to be a weird schedule, and you would love to pick up those wins against a team like the Padres who weren't playing that well.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue here. Is it's not that the Padres aren't a good team. They are a pretty solid team, but I thought we had caught them at a good time. And I really thought we were going to win that Tuesday game, to be honest with you. And I really think we also had a great chance in the Wednesday game if we didn't get, Fernando Cruz giving up his first, major hit of the entire year, essentially. So it was an unfortunate series, but, I think it still looked to me like the Reds were doing all right. But then we head into this Orioles series. Now, Joe, I was there on the Friday game. You were there on the Sunday game, right? Did you go? Okay. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you guys, I have one big issue with Friday's game that I will get into here once I am done recapping. I mean, probably the most major issue that I've had with David Bell probably ever, potentially ever, truly. Orioles win 3-0 after a lengthy rain delay. The Reds, Hunter Green, honestly, I described it as a very great, weirdly bad start for him. Like, he was so dominant, but at the same time, he just was wasting so many pitches. Like, he was so good, he should have probably been able to go the whole game. But he was just wasting a bunch of pitches. He wasn't really hitting his spots in the way that I would have liked. But at the same time, he was amazing. It was like they just could not make good contact on him. I sat there watching the whole game, and I'm like, it's a miracle that he hasn't given up more runs because they were like, sputtering out hits here and there. It felt like he was just getting into bad counts, and yet when it mattered most, he was battling. So it was really good to see him do that. The Reds' offense was literally Elly De La Cruz. He got the only 2 hits in this game. Pretty pitiful to say the least after Emilio Pagan gives up a home run to Ryan O'Hearn, and it hit 3 rows in front of me. So very unfortunate there. Reds, Saturday, 2-1 game. Joe and I are hanging out. We think the game's over. The Reds claw their way back after Andrew Abbott, feels the pressure, only giving up 2 runs, and you're like, oh man, is that too many already? The Reds get down to it. They got a man on first and third and are unable to get across that second run after Cano comes in when they had finally gotten to Kimbrel, and you thought maybe, just maybe they could pull out one game in this one. We're unable to do so. Then the Sunday game. Honestly, wasn't terrible. Lodolo had a really rough first inning after getting 2 outs. He gives up 3 runs, including a 2-run home run. And then after that, settled in. Seemed like things were fine. Brent Suter comes in, struggles. Cruz gives up or Diaz, I believe it was, gave up a couple runs as well. Next thing you know, it's 11-1 or 11-0. The Reds again scratch across a run at least in the 9th inning and threatened to do a little bit more damage. Not that it mattered much at all. And the Reds get swept by the Orioles at home. Look, the Orioles are a good team. Anybody who argues differently would be absolutely stupid. But we thought this Reds team would be better. They are still missing a lot. I will give them that. Starting pitching this weekend was solid. Really solid, in my opinion, to be honest with you. But when you have 11 hits, 5 walks, and 26 strikeouts over the weekend, that is pitiful. I mean, that is abysmal. It is unacceptable, and there are major issues that we're going to talk about here in a second. And I know that hitting has been the problem. But my God, David Bell putting in Emilio Pagan to face the one righty and then multiple lefties in a row. When you have 3 lefties in your bullpen that have not seen action for multiple days in a row is an absolute crock of shit. I'm just going to say it right now. I literally told my dad, we're sitting there in right field, and I said, you better be ready because Pagan's giving up a home run this inning. I guarantee it. It just made no sense. Sam Moll has been damn near unhittable in the 5 games since he's come back. Brent Suter, yeah, he has his issues, but generally has been okay against lefties. And if you're still not feeling good about it, you go to Justin Wilson. But guess what? He still went to Justin Wilson afterwards. It makes no sense. None. Absolutely zero. I've never been so pissed off in my entire life at David Bell because it felt like, yes, was that game going well for the Reds? No. But putting in Pagan in that situation against a multitude of lefties was egregious. Absolutely egregious, and may have single-handedly lost the Reds that game because if they don't give up those runs, Elly hits that double to start it off. Maybe they bunt somebody over, which God forbid you're not scoring any runs. Why don't you do anything to get Elly over to third base without having to try to have him steal against one of the better catchers in baseball? It was truly one of the worst managed games I've seen him have ever. And having to watch it in person made me almost sick, especially after having to sit there for almost 3 freaking hours waiting for the game to start and then seeing that kind of performance. Mind-blowing to me. I don't know if you were watching it live or not, Joe. I don't know if you were thinking the same thing as me, but I literally told my dad, I was like, we are going to lose this game right here, right now, because he put in Pagan. I had no earthly idea why he would do that. None.
I'm glad you're starting to hate David Bell more. Get on my team here, buddy. It's This is you're picking one moment, but he's done this shit all the
Oh,
time,
I know.
and that's
Oh,
what
I know.
frustrates me. So I just I the giving him. I know we mentioned this in the preseason show. Giving him a contract in the middle of last year was the dumbest thing you could do. I think personally, he had never proven anything with this team. The team did play better than we expected last year. But we also have a heap of young talent who is coming up to help us, and now we're in the situation where a lot of our young players aren't developing. They aren't being used the right way. Some pitchers are being left in too long. Some aren't being left in long enough. The hitters' mentality is kind of pitiful. We talked about the comment that he made last week on the show about he would prefer people strike out looking. That's just not in my DNA to even believe any bit of that. And I just it's got to the point where I tried to be like, okay, he didn't have much to work with when he first got the job, right? And now he does have more to work with, and things seem to be going to shit. And it is an all organizational failure too. Like we don't have guys coming up to being pulled up to help when we have guys who are sick or guys. We're not putting guys on the IL. We're not going into making these big free agent acquisitions that we really want. But it is very frustrating to watch David Bell to manage this team specifically. And you're right, that one win could have really helped tide things over
Mm-hmm.
when you think about the long season here. I mean, as you said, one win on the week, West Coast trip coming up. Looks like the players kind of gave up, to be honest, in that Orioles game on Sunday. It looked like they gave up a couple runs early, and it was all right. This is done. Let's just give
Yep.
up, and it's pretty pitiful. So I just wish they would not have given him a contract extension, especially at that time. I guess they would have had to at some point anyway. But just the Reds are still doing the thing where they don't want to go all in, and they could have gone and got some other manager, tried to shake things up. They just didn't do it. And when you play teams like the Orioles, who are doing a rebuild very, very well, that's going to hurt you. That's going to hurt you because they're doing it well. They have hitters all up and down their lineup. They're hitting the ball really well. They seemingly are working well as a team as well. So I don't know. That series was pretty awful. I did not expect them to win. I had 1-2 on the series. I thought they could sneak out a win, but just the way it happened to me was just kind of the worst part of it.
Yeah, it was gross. And you're right. I mean, look, I've tried to give David Bell a lot of credit for, I think, working through some really bad situations, to be fair. He's had an owner that has definitely handcuffed him at times. I do think that the injuries this year are playing a really big part in the reason why this team is playing the way they are. I believe strongly that in June, as long as we can get through this month without losing every single game, essentially, that you and I will feel. I say that only slightly jokingly, to be honest with you, but you know, I think you and I will feel maybe a little bit better once we hit the summer months because we'll have Friedel back, we'll have Marte back, and then very shortly afterwards we should be getting back Matt McLean. Maybe in early August is the hope right now, but that's still like we still I believe have maybe 30 games left until Marte comes back. TJ Friedel's been down on in Louisville. Seemingly looks like he's feeling fine. He's been hitting okay, but you can't really rely on just him to come back and help a team that's this bad right now at batting, Joe. It's awful. And there is a positive from this week, and we will talk about that. But I think right now it's time for us to kind of continue in our woes, in our despair, our depression, you name whatever it is. Watching this team right now is awful. Here's what I'm going to say before we start anything else. I'm going to ask these questions. I have a very, very particular opinion about it, but I'm going to ask them both together, Joe, because I think that that's worth us kind of weaving in the discussion this way. How much of this is on the Reds being just young, generally younger hitters, because you will see these types of slumps and stuff like that from younger hitters? And then how much of this is the coaching staff? Similar to our question of the day, right? I will say this much before I let you jump in here. Without Spencer Steer and Ellie De La Cruz, I don't know that this team has 10 wins. Just straight up. They carried the offense for like the first month at different times. Really proud of them. That's awesome. The rest of this team has been absolute, just abysmal. They've been absolutely abysmal. It's been terrible. So I'll let you go in first. I have a lot to say on this, but I'm interested to hear what your opinions are.
Yeah, this is I think a lot about the Reds being young, and I'll say it this way, Rob, like young as in age, but more so young as in Major League Baseball experience, because we have guys who are older who, whether it's their second season in the big leagues or it's Nick Martini who's 33 years old and just hasn't played a lot of baseball, Major League Baseball, I should say. That's a big part of things. We needed that veteran bat. We mentioned that was a reason to possibly bring back Joey Votto, even though he's had his struggles in the last couple of years. Just having a veteran presence to help them get through, some of the dog days of summer, some of the bad days during the early parts of the season. That would be really big. Uh, but at a certain point, you play enough games, you can hit or you can't hit. Like I don't know where that line is. It's different for each player on the
Yeah.
team right now because they are so young. But there is a point where you're like, okay, you're either going to hit or you're not going to hit. So that's something to consider. And for me, I don't like the coaching staff that much. I don't think that they. I think they're showing aggressiveness on the base paths. I do like that part of it, so I'll give them a little credit there. The approaches from players are bad, but yes, I would probably make some changes to the manager position if this doesn't change pretty soon. Honestly, even mid-season. But at the end of the day, I put most of the blame at the players. Just to kind of answer the question of the day, like you the hitting coach can help you. They can give you details. They can inform you. But at the end of the day, the baseball is a great sport because it's one pitcher versus one man. It is 1v1. It is get in there. You're trying to figure out what the pitcher's pitching. You're trying to see if you can outthink the pitcher, all that stuff. So while they aren't being maybe helped by the coaching staff, I do put more of the blame on the players to kind of answer both questions and the question of the day all in one. Is just I just you have to get in there and see the ball better and have better approaches at the plate. It sucks if your manager is telling you it's okay to strike out looking, but they're all professionals. Like this isn't the kids' game anymore. They gotta step up and start hitting the ball.
See, I get what you're saying 100%. I think there is an onus on the players to get in there and figure it out, right? Like to go down to the batting cages, whatever it is, review film, whatever they need to do. But here's what I'm going to say to this. When your entire team is not hitting, entire team, that is a philosophy problem. Whether it's from the manager, whether it is from the hitting coach, or whether it is from the players, I can't say for sure because we're not in there. We don't know, right? Like David Bell may just be defending his guys. Okay? It's a terrible thought, by the way. Strikeout looking should never, ever happen. I don't think the Reds do it that often, to be honest with you. I'd have to check, but I feel like most of the time they're going down swinging, to be fair. That being said, when every single player on your team, essentially, other than Spencer Steer and Ellie De La Cruz, are not hitting, and when I'm watching the at-bats that I am, to me, it looks like they are not prepared when they go up to face certain pitchers. They're swinging at pitches that are just just trash. We have players who are just completely guessing at this point, right? Like there's no preparation, it feels like, at all in their bats. I'm watching Candy. I'm watching India. I'm watching Benson. I'm watching even Ellie swing at pitches that there's no way that their mental process should be, hey, that's where that pitch is going to be. That's what they're going to throw to me, right? Like, I forget who it was. I saw somebody swinging at a first pitch. Like the Orioles all weekend were pitching backwards, which means you are starting with a breaking ball, ending with fastballs, right? That should give the Reds an advantage. They like to see fastballs most of the time. That's just kind of the way they hit. Well, didn't seem to matter. And late in the count, they were really late on the fastball, which means to me that they weren't paying attention. And then they were swinging at first pitch breaking balls consistently, especially ones that were out of the zone. So if that's the case, then your philosophy, or at least the prep work that you have done, is not good enough. And it shouldn't be on. What sucks is the pitching is now, like, you're right. I was listening to that game. I was driving to my aunt and uncle's house for my cousin's birthday, and Lodolo gives up 3 runs in the first. I literally turned it off because I'm like, there's no chance we're winning this game. None. He gave up 1. And I was like, okay, 1, whatever. 3 runs in the first. Nope. There's no way they're going to win this game because they can't hit right now. They all look terrible. I mean, I'm watching their at-bats. I'm watching pitch by pitch, Joe, and I'm literally sitting there like, why are you, like, they're watching fastballs in perfect spots. They're literally swinging at breaking balls that aren't even close to the plate. Like, there is a fundamental problem with hitting with this team right now from start to finish. And it's almost every single player in the lineup. That's also why they're not walking. It's unacceptable to have 3 walks in a series against the Padres. That's terrible. They're not taking any pitches. Like they're just swinging at crap. CES, we saw it literally on Saturday together, is swinging at balls that are nowhere even close. He's completely guessing. He has no idea what he's looking at up there right now. And if that is the case, if somebody like me, I'm not saying my opinion is right, but if I can notice something like that, these hitting coaches have to be able to notice something like that. They have to be able to try to institute a change. And that's why I'm not going to fully blame it on them, because guess what? There's a chance that these guys just aren't listening or they're not learning. But at the same time, your job as a coach is to make them better. And if they're all slumping at the same time, for me at least, that's either A, completely unlucky, or B, that is a fundamental issue with the coaching staff and the approaches that they are giving these players with all the data that we have now. They all have hit at different levels. They've all hit at different times. We've seen it. They absolutely can hit. But are they able to make those adjustments? Are they able to do what they need to get better? And part of that's on the coaching staff. Part of that's on the players. But I'm going to, for right now, considering they're all very young outside of Candy, I'm laying it at the feet of the coaches. You have to find a way to figure out why these guys are not hitting all of a sudden when most of them have hit through most of their careers, most of their minor league careers, and we've seen them hit and be a little less streaky even last year. So I know it's not a ton of at-bats, but that's your job as a coach. That's what you're hired to do. And batting 210 as a team is unacceptable to me.
Yeah, it's unacceptable, but I just, there's some things that you're saying that like, oh, the fastball's down the middle, they're not swinging at. Like the approach is bad. The hitter decides the approach too. Like, yes, you can get data to help him, but if you're up at the plate and you're not swinging at those pitches, regardless of what the coach tells you, you are an idiot. I'm sorry. You need to start doing that, hitting balls in the zone. We see the guys, the best hitters in the history of baseball, are always the one who prepare themselves. And always like Joey Votto wasn't necessarily getting scouting reports from like the coaches. It was him studying and him, being a philosophizer, as we like to say it. Like he's studying what the pitchers are doing and kind of coming up and playing this game of like it's puzzle game, trying to figure it out. So it's hard for me to say.
That took him years. He listened to coaches for years first. That's my point, though. And he's talked about even hitting coaches in the past that helped him come up with a lot of his philosophies.
Right. But I will still say, with the way that they are hitting right now, we can't just be like, oh, well, they hit in the minors, they're good. Or, hey, they hit last year, that was okay. I think you have to say, this is pretty awful. And it is it's mostly the player's fault, in my opinion. I don't think you can say the coaches are going to make someone go from not hitting to being really, really great. And I just don't see it. I really do think you have to start criticizing the players here. As much as I don't want to do that, it's been so bad that it needs to be criticized and talked about. Like all these guys, maybe a lot of the guys we have on the team, they are who we thought they were. Like, yeah, Ellie's a great prospect. Yeah, we have Matt McClain, who was a great prospect. There's guys on this team who were never supposed to be anything, and they gave us some life last year. Will Benson, Guardians gave up on him. He's not hitting well for us. CES, it was a good prospect, not the greatest prospect. He was a good prospect, but Candy's a 243 hitter. What did we expect when we signed him? Like, even me, I was like, I guess 250, so I guess I was wrong there too. What are we doing here? So I'm very different from you, and I think philosophies here, because I can't watch those bad at bats and say, oh, a coach was telling him to swing at a ball that was out of the zone. Hey, the manager isn't helping him enough. I see this sport as you get in the box and you have to see what you hit. You're just not seeing anything right now.
I don't know that I agree with that at all. Because even if this is the case, right? So, like, again, Jamer's a 243 hitter. I expect him to hit 243. He's hitting 190. Tyler Stevenson is a 250 to 260 hitter. He's batting 211 right now, right? Like, Jonathan India, same thing. He is let's see. Jonathan India is about 245 hitter. He's batting 219, right? Even Luke Maley, through most of his career, has been at least above 200 plus hitter, right? For most of his career, he's batted around 220, essentially. He's batting 146 right now. Okay. You're right. Like, the players have to make their own decisions, Joe, but like when it comes to coaching, you're changing the philosophy of a player, right? Or you are trying to tell them, hey, this is what you should be looking for, right? Like, this is the mindset that you should have. especially with young players who haven't established what their style is yet or how necessarily they see the ball or what they work with. At a young age, I believe that coaching matters quite a bit, especially when you're just getting used to the majors. So I think to be like, yeah, this is just who they are as hitters, I think that that's, if you really believe that, then we're completely screwed, because that means they're not going to get better. That means that they will get marginally better at best, and that then they should scrap most of this team that they've been trading for and going out and getting. Because if they're not going to bat much better than 215, 210, right, then you got to blow it up again. So I don't believe that. I can't believe that, because if we believe that, then this entire team is screwed, because nobody's going to hit. And if nobody hits, then we're all done. Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I can't believe that. Now, to give credence to this, there are a lot of guys who are playing in bad situations. Like Stu Fairchild, he really can only hit lefties. He's having to hit against a bunch of righties. His batting average is going to go down, right? Jake Fraley and Will Benson are having to hit against lefties on a more regular basis. Their batting averages are going to go down. This was not the way the team was constructed completely. But at the same time, if you truly believe, Joe, and it's fine if you believe that, but if you truly believe that most of these guys can't hit, like, are not going to be able to, like, this is who they are, like you said, like, maybe we have to accept that, then blow up the whole damn thing. Literally at the trade deadline. Let's just be done with it. Let's keep Steer, let's keep Ellie, and let's just be done and start moving on to new guys.
I'm not saying that they're going to be hitting, Spencer Steer's going to hit 246 the rest of his career. I'm saying that he is having struggles right now, and those struggles are being caused by his approach at the plate and other people's approaches at the plate, and that's going to be something that might continue if they don't fix it. And yes, coaching can help, but there's no magic wand here, Rob. Like, they're not going to be helped by some coach giving them another scouting report that they're going to read. They're going to have to go change their approach themselves. They have to be more comfortable in what they are doing as players. I don't think the coaching is very important. Baseball might be the one where it's the least important, honestly, in all sports. It's just not that important when you have a guy who needs to go be a master of his craft. You need to go into the box and have your own plate approach and your own study skills that you're doing. So coaching can definitely be better. I'm not arguing there. I just think we got to a point now where, yes, the whole team is struggling. Maybe a veteran can help with some tips or something, but I think it's kind of weird to be like, hey, Candy, you're batting 190. Let's blame the hitting coach. Like, okay, Candy's been around for how many years now? He can figure it out, and if he can't figure it out, then he's done. I mean, yeah, that's how it goes. So
yeah, but that's the outlier here is the problem. Candy, I almost want to take Candy out because he may just be bad, and that's fine. But he's had years to prove it. Most of these guys have had months, and to say that like maybe this is just who they are, I think is a complete disservice to most of these players. And then to completely take out their minor league stats, like, yeah, you have to hit in the minors, and most of these guys were hitting well above 300 in minors. It's not like we're taking a bunch of like 270, 280 guys and like being like, hey, like we expect you to do stuff. Like, I mean, CES at one point I think was hitting like 360 with like 15 or 20 home runs in like a 3-month span. Like, these guys can hit. So I'm not, and they will learn is my thing. But I think that totally being like, maybe this is just who Will Benson is, or this is maybe just who CES is. Like, I think that that's a total disservice to a young player. Personally, I really do. I think that that's not, and now to be fair, yours and mine's mindset doesn't matter to the players, and we're going to find out over time, right? For sure. But I do not think, and I'm not solely blaming on the players or on the coaches, like I said. But what I am pointing out is you have to learn good habits as a young player. You have to learn new ways to see the ball. I mean, we just saw Jackson Holiday come up and look like absolute crap. He was horrible. Mm-hmm. And he was the best hitter not in baseball at that time, like in the minor leagues, everything on the planet. And he struck out 16 out of 30 times or something like that, right? Absolutely atrocious. There is a big step. There's a big difference. And for me, it's not going to be a veteran that's going to necessarily help you with that. It's going to be, yeah, you have to adapt, but your best way for you to adapt is from a guy who has a lot of experience in coaching players at that level. And that's what you want in your hitting coach, to make sure that, hey, this is what I'm seeing. These are the opinions that I can give you. This is the way that I can help you, right? Because otherwise it's like, then let's just be done with the hitting coaches too. Like, why have them, right? Like, if it's truly just on the players, then we don't need them. That's what I'm saying. Like, I agree with you. Once the players get up to
Well,
at bat, they have to do this. But what I'm saying is I'm seeing a systematic problem where they are looking, like even the Cowboy talked about it this weekend. He goes, they're getting set up for pitches that the pitcher wants them to swing at right now. And he's like, there is a mental focus and issue across the entire team right now. And to me, if it's the entire team, right? If it's not just a couple players, if it's literally every single player, including Ellie, whose average has dipped quite a bit in the last week and a half, then to me, that has to go on the coaching staff, at least a good portion of it. Because if it's every single player and not just some that are having the same bad approaches, right? That's a mindset that is in the entire clubhouse to me. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not that it's just, hey, like 3 or 4 players are just struggling, dude. It is literally every single player other than Ellie, and even Ellie has not necessarily looked great over the last 2 weeks. That's all I'm saying. And I think it's a disservice to put this blame mostly on the players when especially most of them are very young. That's all.
if you want to go fire the hitting coach tomorrow, I don't care. I don't give a shit. But at the end of the day, the players are judged on their performance, and they should be judged on their performance. And I don't think it's a disservice to say, hey, sometimes guys do show you who they are. And I'm not saying, again, that means Spencer Steers can hit 246 for the rest of his career. I think he can end up being 275 type of hitter for his career. That's fine. But we have these guys who are slumping, and it could just be a slump. It could be coaching. We have to hold people accountable. And if you want to say coaching too, that's fine. But we're, how many games into the season now? 30 games, something, in the 35 games into the season. You have to start hitting. I mean, this is not just like you said, Rob, last week. We're a month into the season. These stats actually matter now. Like,
sure,
you have to be in charge of your own fate here. And I really do think that, hey, if you want to shake it up, if you want to do some ritual to get something shaken up, do it. If you want to fire the hitting coach, do it. I don't care. Because again, I think those coaches are really a dime a dozen, to be honest. But I really do. I do think that you need to start. Not you personally, Rob. I'm saying people need to start saying like, hey, minor leagues is different than major leagues. Hey, maybe this guy is hitting this way. Maybe that is how it will be. We've seen so many guys over their careers. We knew, like, hey, Jay Bruce, 265 hitters, he's going to strike out every time he faces a breaking ball that's thrown by a left-handed pitcher that goes out and away of the zone. Mm-hmm. Like, we're figuring out this data right now. And right now it looks like, hey, these guys might not be as good as expected. And that's fine, to be honest. But I can say, hey, the coaches can be partially responsible. I just can't put most of the blame like you were doing on the coaches when it is a sport where you get up to the box and you can do what you want. You can literally ignore the coaches if you want, which is not advisable and for young kids out there. But if you're a pro, your next contract is on you. It's not on the coach. No, you're not going to get a bigger contract because the coach told you to do something necessarily. It's going to be, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out. So I just really think that it's not like, hey, these guys will hit 190 the rest of their career or anything like that. But I do think that we can put blame on the players, and they need to figure out how to get out of this hole. The coaches can help, but they're the ones digging themselves into the hole by swinging at pitches so far out of the zone. And that's something that I would say, if a coach is telling you to do that or helping you do that, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine that the advice is bad there, but that's something we have to deal with here. I mean, if it is bad, then fire the coach. But I really do think that the baseball is a sport where you are in charge of your fate. It's one-on-one, pitcher versus batter, and that's what makes it great. And I don't mind that if you want to put more of the blame on the coaches right now and you want to fire a hitting coach. But at the end of the day, we fire the hitting coach and the next one comes in and they're not hitting. Then who's the problem? That's what we have to figure out.
Exactly. But I would rather that be the case. I'd rather know for sure, because it's easier to fire one coach than it is to say that this entire team is what they are. That's my point. And I will say this to your credit, I understand what you're saying, because listen, if they all end up being 225, 230 hitters, then I'm 100% on the players, to be completely honest with you. 100%. But when the whole team is hitting 200, that's where I have a problem. That's where I truly believe that it is a systematic problem. They're not walking. They're striking out an absurd amount. And throughout most of their careers, even if they may be short, their strikeout numbers were not like this. Their walk numbers were not like this. That is an approach problem. And if it's everybody having a similar problem all at the same time, then it can't just be individual at that point, in my opinion. Like, there's too much of a coincidence for them to all be slumping all at the same time, all doing the same sorts of things, all swinging at terrible pitches. I mean, it's just too much for me to just be like, all right, yeah, each one of them individually is just, they're just not doing it, man. They're not like, yes, they have to start a new approach. And I'm hoping this off day today, by the way, because they get a random Monday off day before we have a lot of even tougher games potentially, to be honest with you. Maybe not tougher than the Orioles, but a lot of really tough games, right? Maybe this is the chance where they get to sit down and do something. And like even this, another thing with coaching, letting Mike Ford go and keeping Nick Martini up here is just a joke to me. I will be honest with you. Unless if he is that great of a clubhouse guy where they're just like, hey, we're all going to figure it out. Having him here in the clubhouse is worth it. That guy's hitting. Again, there's a difference between AAA and the major leagues. But if you're telling me that Mike Ford can't come up here and provide a couple more runs, all we needed were a couple more runs and we win these games, right? Like, that's just the reality. And most of this team is just not hitting. I mean, it's just a joke. Like, it's bad. It's really bad to me. And it's sad because I've seen Spencer Steer make in-season adjustments even last year. I've seen him make them even earlier this year already. I've seen Ellie De La Cruz do it. We've seen Tyler Stevenson and Jonathan India do it over multiple years, right? I don't know, man. It just feels like a cluster. It just all feels like a cluster. And maybe we're just, disagreeing on something that's maybe just a true, just everybody sucks right now kind of a thing. And we're going to get lucky and they're all going to start to turn it around here in the next couple weeks. The one good thing I can say is once we head into this here in just a minute, at least we're facing pitching that is actually actively worse than the two pitching staffs that we just saw. So that's good news. But yeah, it's just killing. I think we're both just like dying inside right now to have to see this because I really like a lot of these young guys. But like, dude, I mean, the one player I will say I will actually put full blame on right now is 100% on CES, dude. That dude does not watch pitches. He just swings at. He looks like me and MLB The Show the first couple weeks that I'm getting back into the game. I'm just swinging at everything. I have no idea what's coming. It's really bad. I mean, that is probably the worst plate approach of everybody, and he has been that way since he got called up. So maybe he is going to be that kind of a problem. But I will say it's mind blowing to me how bad this is.
Yeah, to put a bow on it from my perspective, at the end of the day, bad advice could hurt players if they're not getting the right advice. But it is on the players to go up there and hit, and that's why they get most of the blame here for me. Now, again, if you want to fire the hitting coach, I'm cool with it. If you want to fire David Bell tomorrow, I'm cool with it. I don't care. The performance has not been good. The front office has kind of hamstrung things as well, like you said with Mike Ford. I do think that would still be pounding a square peg into a round hole because I think it's the same. He'd have the same problem that everyone else does. But 211 on this team is freaking awesome. It's better than the team average. So let's go.
20 points higher, baby. We'll take it right now.
He's Mike Ford's a 211 career hitter. So I mean that's who knows. But no, I think. You're right. If changes do come, it's going to come to the coaches before it's going to come to the players, and that'll be the result. But if it is, some of this is like just as how the players are, and we are screwed in the future. So I guess it is cool to want to fire the hitting coach first, but I do think that a lot of streaky guys, and that's not good. I would love to see more consistency. I thought Spencer Steer would be that consistent guy, and he's now slumping too. But if we're still having this conversation in 2 months, that these guys aren't hitting, this is a very bad thing for this team this year, for the future, and everything else, because that starts to be what they're known for. I'm not saying you can have one bad year and come back, but with every bat you get, you're supposed to be getting this experience, and it just feels like all the experience we've been getting has been sort of negative in the last several weeks. So I don't know. I'm going to hold the players accountable for now and just say it's on them. I don't know that they're getting any worse intel from the coaching staff, and we just don't know. So if we don't know, I'm just going to say that the players are ones to blame, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out in the next couple weeks here. Who's really to blame, and who's the hitting coach is gone, if he's still here, if we're still batting bad, if we get anyone back, if TJ Friedel comes back and plays well. I mean, we're going to find out a whole lot about this team in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's about to be do or die here, and we're only in the second season for most of these guys. I don't know if I want to be that way, to be honest, but it could be. It could be. It would be really It would be one of the most disappointing things in sports in my entire lifetime if this team truly was this. If this was most of their hitters, I would be absolutely depressed because it would mean that from top to bottom, we don't know how to scout and find players. We traded away a bunch of great players for absolutely nothing. And we restarted going from super promising to an absolute dumpster fire. And that would be a lot for, I think, any Reds fan. I mean, that would be a lot. That would be a lot. That could literally, that could break down the entire system because then you don't have anybody going to the games. Then they have no money, and then we are literally in the dog pound again for a decade. So let's hope that that's not the case. Now, to be fair, to give some hope, there are a lot of good things, and we still have people like Edwin Arroyo, Noelvi Marte to come up who can be very good for this lineup. Your goal, essentially, is that 5 of these lineup players hit. That's kind of my hope, is that 5 of them hit and can be everyday starters. The rest can go to bench players, whatever that is. I do truly believe, sorry, to do my wrapping of the bow, I do believe that with Friedel, McLean, and Marte back, plus Arroyo if we end up needing him next year, I think that the future is still extremely promising for this team. Because I do think Ellie and I do think Spencer Steer are professional hitters that are going to figure it out, and they are going to continue to get better. I'm not as confident in Will Benson anymore, sadly. Don't really know about India. I still think Tyler Stevenson has actually been relatively good. He's hit the absolute shit out of the ball, and it's just gone right at people for half the season. So I'm going to give him a little bit more credit. I still think players like Stuart Fairchild, I think, is a great guy against lefties. He's a nice bench bat, but it's just the rest of the team it worries me. But I think we'll be okay, to be clear. I really do.
Well,
but yeah.
I think what we have to do here is keep the hope that they turn into better players, and that will come with a lot of work and everything. But also keep in mind what we know versus what we think we know so far. So right,
True.
like we know Ellie has all the tools to be a great player. We know he is a streaky hitter, but he can hit, right? So that's good to have for the future. We have Spencer Steer, who usually is consistent but is struggling right now. I can expect him to bounce back and be a solid hitter in his career, I feel like. And we know Matt McLean is a good contact hitter. He will get on base when he comes back. That's what we know for this team for this year is like in my head for hitting at least. We'll talk about pitching here later. But we know those 3 things. When you have McLean out, I mean, that's going to hurt you. When both these guys are slumping, that's going to hurt too. But you have to build around those 3 guys. And everyone else really needs to figure it out around those guys. But it's hard for the team to hit when you have those 2 guys slumping and McLean out. But it's good to say, like, hey, the only guys we really know are like going to be future of this team, like we expect them to be good, are those 3 guys of like, hey, we know they're good. They've proven it, even if it was just for McLean couple games last season and then he got hurt this season. The other guys still have a lot to prove, and the good news is they have several of them who can step up, whether it's like, hey, Friedel, last year played well. We'll see if we can do it again this year. We have Marte coming in. Can he have a good another? Because he was the last one they brought up last year, so like he needs to prove it more this year too. So for me, that's what's good about it is you have those 3 guys in different capacities of hitting. Let's see what we can add to it. I would have thought that CES or Benson will have a good season. I thought Fraley would get more at bats. It's not happening. So
well, I think Benson's time for Fraley may be coming to an end here. Honestly, that may be flipping very soon. All right, so that was our bow wrapping on that one. Again, we do have promise for the future, and I think it was a good heated discussion for Joe and I because I don't know that we necessarily have those that intensely that often. So I enjoyed it personally, and I always appreciate Joe's opinion. Now we get to go to the starting pitching, though. We're happy now. We are in happy mode currently, Joe. Dude, let's be real. This starting pitching is absolutely just bomb. They are so freaking good right now. Maybe they're streaky too. I don't know. I watch pitching more than I do hitting. So to give a lot of credit over to Joe with the hitting portion, like I am probably wrong on this. Pitching wise, I feel a lot more confident. What I'm seeing out of this pitching staff is wild. They have been insane. Here are their stats. I'm going to give the quickest rundown as possible. We got Hunter Green with a 3.12 ERA and 40 innings pitched, 47 strikeouts, 16 walks, 2 home runs given up, a 117 whip, and a 217 average. Abbott, 332, 38 innings pitched, 35 strikeouts, 11 walks, 7 home runs. That's his big no-no. 1.16 whip and a 229 average. Graham Ashcraft, the guy who Joe and I had another heated discussion about. 3.63 ERA, 34 innings pitched, 30 strikeouts, 9 walks, 5 home runs, and a 1.27 whip with a 252 average. And then Nick Lodolo, potentially the true ace of this team. We'll have to see about that as well. But a 2.79 ERA, 29 innings pitched, 37 strikeouts, 8 walks, 2 home runs, a .93 whip, and a 184 batting average. Now, Joe, I want you to know this: the team ERA right now for starting pitchers is a 3.72, I think, something like that. It's like right near the top 10. I'm pretty sure if you take Montas and Nick Martinez, more specifically probably Nick Martinez out, this may be a top like 7 or 8 staff in baseball right now. They are unreal, and they all have their strengths. Yes, like I said at the beginning, Hunter Green drives me nuts with the amount of pitches that he wastes. I really wish he wouldn't, but at the same time, a 3.12 ERA, he's amazing. Like, he is looking like the guy that we had hoped that he would be. It's kind of insane. Like, it's almost like when he has to get outs, he gets them. He just kind of like putzes around at times. It drives me nuts. Andrew Abbott, dude, the color of the most consistent guy. Yeah, he may give up 2 runs or 3 runs a start. Like, he's not gonna have those, but he's not gonna have those big starts where he's giving up a ton of runs. And he's rarely, it looks like, gonna be that guy that's gonna give up no runs. But if this dude can sit around a freaking 3 ERA, I'll bleep that out, a 3 ERA for most of his career, and his big thing is giving up solo home runs, who cares? Graham Ashcraft, if you would have told me that he had the least amount of walks per innings across the entire starting pitching staff, I would have told you that you were crazy, because his stuff is really hard to control, and we've seen that. But he is starting to figure it out. His last few starts have been insane. Then you have Nick Lodolo, who has come back and truly looks damn near unhittable, dude. I get so excited thinking about the fact that we are going to have Williamson, potentially even a guy like Chase Petty, and Rhett Lauder all starting, and Connor Phillips too, sorry. One of those 4 guys are going to have to come in and be that 5th starter of the future for us, and that gets me excited because the rest of the staff looks insane, and it doesn't look like it's a streak thing. I think that some of them are starting to really honestly figure it out, dude, and the exact opposite of the hitters. Their approach to pitching has been unbelievable, truly. It has been almost masterful to watch them pitch lately. It gets me super pumped, and I'm afraid that I'm jinxing them for this week, but it's been awesome. It really has been great.
Yeah, I can't say a bad word about the pitching staff, given how well they've done. And also just because it has to be tough going out there and getting no run support. Like, it's mentally, you're going out there pitching your best, doing your best. But no, I think part of the reason we believed in this team was because we thought the young pitchers would step up, and they're all doing it. Like you said, you can go through and nitpick something for all these guys, whether it's Hunter Green wasting pitches, whether it's Ashcraft's inconsistency. But it's just incredible what they're doing given the situation they're in. And right, I think this leads me to think that, hey, at least we'll have pitching for the future. The hitting will come back at some point. It'll come back. We'll figure it out. But this puts us in a good spot to be in from a long-term perspective. If you have 4 pitchers who are this good, that means, hey, next year maybe it's Rhett Lauder. If Rhett Lauder's not ready still, that's fine. Go sign an ace. Go actually put money into this team. If hitting wise, if you have those 3 guys that we just talked about who are figured it out, but no one else has, go get 1 or 2 more big bats and not just say, hey, let's go get Candy, who's a 243 career hitter. Let's go get someone who's, a little bit better. That is a really good news about this, is that not just 1 is kind of figuring it out, not just 2, 3, 3.5, 4, all of them. You could say all of them at this point. I'm still like waiting out on Lodolo just because I want to see him pitch a little bit more.
Yep.
And I'm holding out, even though he does look the best. I just want to see it over a longer period of time. And the Ashcraft as well, just because of the up and downness of his career. But man, it has to feel so good to have 3 potential aces on the staff. And then again, if Ashcraft can become more consistent, like we saw in the last couple weeks here, that's your 4 or 5 pitcher. That has to feel great.
Well, and so I wanted to do a bit of a comparison just so people understand how great that they have been. If you take away the 5 home runs from Martinez and Frankie Montas, this starting staff in Great American Ballpark has 16 home runs given up, which is top 5 in baseball. If we're looking, the top pitching staffs in baseball right now are the Phillies and the Mariners. Wow, big surprise that we struggled against the Mariners. If you look at them statistically, compared their top 4 for both teams versus the Reds' top 4, the Reds are right in that same area as they are in almost every statistical category. This is wild to me, Joe. Like, I really, truly did not expect them to be this. They're going deeper into games, which I think has been really huge for them too. Almost all of them are averaging well over 5 innings a start, I believe. Let me make sure I have that right. Hunter's almost at 6. Abbott's closer to 5. Ashcraft is closer to 6 as well. Lodolo is well over 6, or is right next to 6 as well. Like, pretty much all of them are averaging almost 6 innings, which is crazy considering last year it was like, please God, just get to 5. Just find a way to get to 5 and we'll figure it out. I think I think a couple of them, specifically Green and Ashcraft, start to become a tiny bit more, like a modicum more pitch efficient. That is it. They're going to be averaging like 6 2/3 innings almost every start. And that's literally all you can ask for, because it feels like we haven't seen some of these bullpen guys in like a week sometimes, because our guys are just going so deep into games. Like, I remember seeing, what's his name? Lucas Sims. It felt like every single game last year. He's only been in 12 games so far this year. Like, you would have thought like Alexis Diaz is not having a good season. He's, outside of his last outing, has generally been very good, but we just haven't had to see him that much because this pitching staff has been so great and they've kept people down that when the hitting's actually good, we don't even need Diaz. So it's like, it's just a wild thing to me, dude. It really is. And maybe Derek Johnson is actually a magician, like a lot of people say. It seems like he couldn't figure it out maybe with some of the older guys in the past, or like the guys that kind of came in with their own mindsets. But then, you have the Sonny Grays that figured it out, the Lorenzens that figured it out. I don't know. Like, I know there was a slight period there where I was starting to doubt Derek Johnson's abilities, but like, between him and just the absolute insane arsenal that these like 4 starting pitchers have, and turning Fernando Cruz into like having one of the best pitches in baseball, it's been wild to see this team's growth, like in the pitching side. As frustrated as I am with the hitting, is the exact opposite way I feel about the pitching. It's been really fun to watch so far this year.
Absolutely. And I think I don't know how to say this in a way that's going to make the most sense, but I think if you would rather have the pitching figured out or the hitting, I always want to have the pitching figured out first. Same. There's a lot more, in my mind, mercenaries out there you can go sign or trade for.
Yep.
And help the hitting than there is pitching. Pitching is always at a premium. So I am happy they're figuring it out. And I hope that they get some run support here soon, because for me personally, I don't want them to get, I feel like the hitting problems have been contagious, and everyone's approaches and everything's been contagious. I want to keep the pitching staff going well. And I feel like if the hitting stuff becomes contagious, the pitchers, if they start like, oh darn, like I gave up a run, game's over, like who cares? Like, I want them mentally focused. I want them to be prepared. I want them to stay engaged, and it is hard to stay engaged when your team's not playing well. But these 4 guys specifically carrying the team right now, man. I mean, we only got one win this week, but it was pretty much because of Lodolo. So I mean, that's just great.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on this too is that like, what's crazy is that they're doing it against good lineups. It's not like we're just facing the White Sox every game. It's not like we're facing, the Mariners, who were a rough team, right? Like, they win against the Padres, the Phillies, and the Orioles during this like most recent stretch of success. And they've dominated. I mean, that Friday game, truly, again, I was frustrated with Green just because it's more because I see the potential for how great he can be. It's not because he was necessarily bad. It's because it's like, he truly could have thrown like a 1-hitter on Friday. That's how good he was. And if he wouldn't have wasted so many pitches, he could have single-handedly won them the game, right? Abbott, same thing. It's like, if Abbott can finally figure out just like, don't give up that one big inning. Dude, that dude's insane. Like, Lodolo giving up his first truly bad inning of the entire season in 3 runs and then just locking it down. Like, same thing with him. Once he gets locked in after that first inning, it seems like he's just almost unhittable. It's wild. So I hope they continue it. Like you said, they are our hope right now. It was Star Wars Day the other day, so truly our only hope. But we'll have to see. Moving forward, I had to throw it in there at least once. We've got the Diamondbacks and the Giants. Now, the Diamondbacks, as we know, lost in the World Series last year. They were a surprise team that came on really strong in the playoffs. They have not started off very well, Joe. They actually have a much worse record than we do. They are 15-20 right now. The matchups are looking like Frankie Montas is officially going to be back, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. I didn't see them officially announce it anywhere necessarily, but I saw it on the Reds website that he's the planned starter. So Martinez goes back to the bullpen, thankfully. But we got Montas versus Zach Gallen, former potential Cy Young candidate. Has not been great necessarily this season, but we know what he can be. Graham Ashcraft versus Jordan Montgomery, who is still kind of in his early season form. Since he signed so late, he's also got like almost a 6 ERA. Hoping we can take advantage of that. And then Hunter Green versus, I think it's Sissoni. I don't know. I didn't look up the pronunciation. I should have forgot, but whatever. He did not also have a great start last outing. I don't even think he made it out of the first. So definitely a starting pitching matchup that should favor the Reds. We'll have to see. Their closer, Kevin Ginkel, is 5-7 in saves so far. Paul Sewald, their normal starter, is dealing with an oblique injury. He won't be back, I believe, for this series. Lineup-wise, we got Jake McCarthy out there in right field. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. In left field. Ketel Marte at second base. Christian Walker at first base. Jock Peterson DHing old friend. Good vibes only. Eugenio Suarez at third base. Corbin Carroll, Rookie of the Year, and just general stud. Struggling a little bit this year to start off, but playing center field. Blaze Anderson, great name. Great baseball name. At shortstop. And then Gabriel Moreno at catcher with old friend Kevin Newman as well as their backup. Tucker Barnhart as well. Catcher Randall Grichuk and Pavin Smith. When your lineup is good enough that Pavin Smith, one of their top prospects in the future, or formerly, isn't starting every day, that's pretty good. But Joe, my biggest note is their pitching has been awful. They've actually had one of the worst pitching staffs in baseball this year for the most part. They do throw a lot of strikes. They're not walking a lot of guys, but they're not striking out much, which means that generally that means their stuff hasn't been very good. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about this series, but maybe that's just the hopeful optimist that I seem to always be. Joe, where are you at?
I want to think that this off day today is going to help us. I really do. I can't watch these plate approaches and be like, I really want to pick 2-1, but I'm not going to. I'm going to pick 1-2, 1-2 series here. Just the bats aren't really working that well. Montas coming back for his first start. We'll see how he does. That kind of gives me some pause too. His last couple starts weren't that good. Started off hot. That's what I'm concerned about, and I do think the Diamondbacks lineup does have some nice pieces in it. Obviously, we got the World Series last year, but it's like one of those things where I think we talked last week about one of the things I did want to see pitchers improve on is like, hey, sometimes it's okay to walk a guy and get to the next hitter. They might need to do that because this you got guys like Corbin Carroll and Suarez who can one swing of the bat, and Peterson. It's just that's what I'm kind of looking for in this series. Can we avoid giving up some big home runs in this? And like you said, Rob, they're doing better than maybe we expected with that stat specifically. But there are some timely things where they give up some bad home runs. So we want to see that improved. And just to wrap everything up, Rob, I had to double check, but it's Ciccone.
Ciccone. Thank you for checking on that one. I will say I'm not as worried about their power necessarily. They're actually one of the lowest home run teams in baseball, I think, with only 32 as a team. Christian Walker is pacing them right now with 7, if I remember correctly, but they can hit. It's only kind of a matter of time for some of these players. You have a lot of big strikeout guys, though, on this team. Peterson, and Suarez specifically. Carroll does strike out a decent amount, too. I'm not super afraid of Blaze Anderson, and I don't think their catching duo is great. Moreno can be solid, but I'm not super afraid of them necessarily. I think our pitching can do well. That being said, I'm also going to go with a 1-2 only strictly because of the bats right now. I think the Hunter Green versus, what was it, Ciccone? Ciccone?
Ciccone.
Ciccone. Sick. Okay. Ciccone. Sorry. Green versus Ciccone is our best matchup, in my opinion. I think that Thursday game gives me a little bit more optimism potentially for this series. As a reminder, we're not playing Monday. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday series, which is a little interesting, to be honest with you, but we'll take the off day after a rough Sunday, to say the least, kind of get things refocused, maybe take a couple naps if they need it. I don't know, catch up on sleep, but will say this. I'm 50-50 on whether it could be a 2-1 or a 1-2. My 1-2 side is mostly just because of my lack of optimism for the hitting, but I do think pitching wise, we should hopefully be able to keep these bats in check for the most part. And it's just going to be whether or not, we take advantage of Zach Gallen and Montgomery specifically, their struggles early on this season. They won't be bad for the whole year. So you got to find a way to beat them now when you get the opportunity, when they're both not looking at their best. So I'm going to go with a 1-2 as well, and we'll hope for a 2-1. Last, we got the Giants here, Joe. Andrew Abbott versus Keaton Wynn. Nick Lodolo versus Logan Webb, and then Frankie Montas. I have a question mark for Mason Black. I believe that was the Blake Snell spot, but he went on the IL. I can't remember. I don't think he's going to be back in time for this one, but that's the matchup right now. You got closer Camilo Duvall, who's 6 for 6. He's looked pretty good so far this year. Lineup wise, we got Jung Ho Lee and center field, their newest addition this offseason. One of the big bats coming over from, I believe it was Japan, if I remember correctly. Lamont Wade Jr. at first base. Jorge Soler also signed later in the season at DH. Michael Conforto in left field. Might be Patrick Bailey. I don't know if he's going to be back necessarily from concussion protocol. I think he's supposed to be back, like his 7 days are up on the 11th, if I remember correctly. So that would be in the middle of this series, the Saturday game. We will have to see. Matt Chapman at third base, Mike Yastrzemski in right field, Tyro Estrada at second base, and then the defensive wizard but can't hit worth a lick, Nick Ahmed at shortstop. Blake Sable, I believe, is going to be the backup / potentially even starting catcher in our series, as Tom Murphy, their other catcher, is also out. So potentially an advantage there for the Reds. Wilmer Flores, who has seemingly been around forever and continues to just hit pretty decently, honestly. Can play a lot of different positions. Austin Slater, when they're outfielders. And then I think it's Tyler Fitzgerald is their fourth guy right now. I was a little confused on that as well. But, Joe, where are you at with this Giants series? At home, I believe, by the way. Or are we on the road? No, we're on the road. We're on the road. Sorry.
We're on the road, yeah. Which is also a good point for the Diamondbacks. They don't have a lot of good power numbers. They have good power hitters, but they also play in that ballpark, which is hard to hit home runs. So good that we're playing them there this time around. We'll see what happens next time. Giants are a team that even the last couple of years, they've had some success. I just never thought they're that good. They're 15-20 right now. Both these series, with the way the Diamondbacks are playing right now, and the Giants, just me not liking the roster, both of these could be 2-1 series.
Mm-hmm.
I just, again, it's hard for me to pick that when we have this going on. I'm hoping something just changes. Like we get like lightning in the bottle again this week. Ellie hits, really, really well, and everyone else picks it up as well. So for me, it's a 1-2. I not really concerned about this lineup as much. Our pitchers can handle it, but we have to start getting more hits. And I don't know. It doesn't matter who the pitchers are at this point for the Giants. For me, it's more of a us problem we have to fix. So I'll go 1-2. I'm hoping to be wrong on both those again. 1-2 predictions this week, but I just until we see something change, I don't think I can pick a 2-1 in good faith, even though I don't think the Giants are that good.
So I'm going to pick a 2-1, and here's why. They have a negative 36 run differential. They have given up 167 runs, almost 20 more runs than us. They've also scored 21 less runs than us, which is kind of wild to think about, to be completely honest with you guys. And I believe that they have played one more game than us as well. They are 2-10 against teams above 500. So while I know we're kind of teetering on that edge, we could, if theoretically, be at 500 or better by the time that we face them, right? Like, I know it's probably not likely, but it's very possible. Their hitting necessarily isn't great. I actually like the fact that we have Andrew Abbott and Lodolo going up when most of their best hitters, except for Jorge Soler, are lefties, especially Patrick Bailey is out. Right? Like, I do think that that gives us an advantage as well. Like, I'm not super afraid of Tyro Estrada and Nick Ahmed. I'm definitely afraid of Chapman at times and Soler, but they're also pretty high strikeout guys, low average, especially for Soler. I really do think that the Reds can win two of three here. I think it may be some pretty low scoring games, to be honest with you. I don't think Keaton Winn is very good. Logan Webb has not looked like he normally does. And if it's Logan Webb versus Lodolo, right now at least I'm taking Lodolo. And then Montas versus Mason Black, you just got to hope that Montas figures it out in this first start back. Otherwise, this Mason Black guy's starting for the first time, I believe it's today in his entire career. So, you got to hope that Montas would have the advantage there. I just think we match up okay against this Giants team. I am going to pick a 2-1. Maybe I'm being a little too hopeful, but I just think that it's a good opportunity. When Abbott and Lodolo can go back-to-back versus teams with a lot of lefties in their starting lineup, and you have to see guys like Austin Slater or maybe Tyler Fitzgerald find their way into the lineup because of either injuries or the desire to, stack it with righties against your lefties. I just think the Reds find a way to maybe bang out a couple of extra runs in this series and get us that 2-1, Joe. But I think we'll see.
I hope you're right, man. And you're right. I think the cool thing, it's a bad thing to have, but it's kind of cool. Is like they really could just be, the Reds start turning it on too this week. I think there's sometimes they do this where they go on streaks where they're really bad, and then all of a sudden one little thing changes. So I hope you're right, and I think you definitely have a chance to be right this week too. So I prefer if your predictions are right as opposed to mine.
Listen, a 3-3 week would be great. I don't think you guys understand. We just have to get through this West Coast. We just got to get through it, guys. It's rough. Joe and I are both not excited about it. We have another West Coast trip at the end of the month, I believe, or near the end of the month, something like that. So it's just like our guys are kind of getting battered here. And luckily, we do have reinforcements. I believe TJ Friedel should be back, potentially even on this trip or right when we get back from this trip. So he may meet us in San Francisco. There's a chance of that. If they really just feel like everybody's struggling, you guys will probably be saying goodbye to our friend Nick Martini at that point, to be honest with you. He will probably be either DFA'd or put down in AAA. Maybe that's why they didn't call up Mike Ford. But, sorry.
No, sorry. I messed this up. We have Arizona at home and the Giants on the road. I think we said that backwards. So
okay, that's right.
I had mentioned that it was important to be playing them at their ballpark. We play them at their ballpark next week, so that'll be a nice little preview for that.
So are you changing your prediction at all? Are you still sticking with the 1-2 or?
Yeah, if anything, I changed it to 0-3, but I'm going 1-2.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, all right, yeah, no, it still stays 1-2 for me. I messed that up. I put that wrong in our spreadsheet, so that's my fault. But yeah. So no, I would love 3-3. Guys, again, it's just hover around 500. I mean, even if we can finish this month at like 5 games under 500, I'm not going to lie to you. I may actively high five Joe and be like, dude, we survived. We literally just survived because the pitching matchups get a lot easier. The lineups get a lot easier. This West is tough, man. I mean, we're going to face the Padres one more time and they just got Luis Ariz and he got 4 hits in his first game. So it's like, these teams are stacked in the West. It's been an arms race in the West. We're just going to hope that they just beat the crap out of each other by the time we get to the playoffs. And we're going to be really glad we faced them earlier in the season than later. Let me tell you that much too. So we'll take this. We'll figure it out. Joe, you got any final thoughts before we sign off here for the day?
Yeah, just hoping we'll be better than what I predicted. And also, the same, we said it last week too, but these schedule makers, man, we have 6 straight series against the NL West. It's crazy. Just absolutely crazy. I don't get it. But so let's hope for a better week.
Yeah, we're going to have to hope. At least we're done with the Orioles as well, by the way, for the entire year. So big positives, guys. Big positives. We're getting some of the best teams in baseball just completely out of the way. We'll be done with the Dodgers, I believe, this month as well, and the Padres and the Diamondbacks. So having all those series just done and out of the way is big plus. Double thumbs up. Let's just get them done with. Let's try to take a game or two in each one of them, and we'll hope and pray at this point. So Yeah, guys, with that, we really do appreciate it. If you have any thoughts on this, please let us know. For those of you who are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure to reach out on on different social media accounts, or even if you want to come over to YouTube and leave a comment. We will absolutely appreciate that. We do appreciate the support for those of you who are watching on a consistent basis. And I think that's going to be all for us, Joe. So with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one.